Armir, Celestito Blanco de Artsy Sister, and today we're reading Saturnastra Nalini Chapter 8, Part 2. As it was usual with Vicos, the silence he emanated over the cemetery caught the necromancer's attention. And one of them turned to look in the direction of Vicos, and he pointed at him, and the other grave robbers looked in that direction, and seeing that Vicos was not hostile, they resumed their nightly activities. And it seemed to me that having such strange visitor was nothing new for the necromancers. After all, disturbing the ashes of the dead was always bad luck. As a matter of fact, their bad luck slithered among the graves, and Artsy had come to claim what rightfully belonged to him. And seeing that the presence of the death gods, one of the necromancers planted the contents of one of his bottles on the ground. And it was a recently harvested soul, and the serpent of death coiled around the remains, and from the ground grew a fragrant violet rose, and the serpent plucked the rose and sunk below the ground. And giving a sigh of relief, the grave robbers continued their nightly rounds, and my concentration was broken by a pull in my dress. And Crimson Rest asked me, "Did you see anything interesting?" "Plenty, but I will tell you about it later," I said, pushing my seat closer to the edge of the balcony. The first play had ended, and as was tradition, the entire cast bowed, and then the new director came out. And he was a small boy about the ages of 7, dressed in black rose, and the hood of his robe had stylized violet flowers, and he wore a leather belt with many pouches and a few jingling bells, and the shawl itself had olive skin, long black hair, and black eyes, and the young age of the producer caught the attention of many of the audience, and in the end most concluded that he was either a prodigy or just for show. And recognizing my brother, I waved to him, and he saw me from the corner of his eye, and he smiled. And he then led to the back of the stage to prepare the second play, and this one was heavily reliant on theater magic. Theater magic was any magic or sleight of hand used for the sole purpose of entertainment. It mostly relied on illusions, mind control, apparitions, and other gimmicks, and when the stage rose, the scenery was 100% theater magic. And it showed a perfect replica of the 1910s American Dust Bowl town. There to shoot and played in a broken-down park, and the swings had no chairs, and the slide had many broken notches, and everything creaked with a dull, hollow sound, and suddenly one of the children rose, wielding an imaginary magic wand, and from his imagination the scenery around him changed, and the children became older, stronger, and one took the form of an adult mage, and the other had a pitch-black armor. And they were about to have their final showdown against the evil dragon, and suddenly the fantasy collapsed at the sound of a lady screaming, "Enrich, time for dinner." I always found the secret game of Clive and Enrich pretty depressing, and I thought much on how terribly bored Mother might have felt when she told us that story. Indeed, boredom is the mother of all tragedies, as my mother used to say. And like those two children, she imagined for herself a much wilder, more exciting magical world, and the more she yearned, the more her heart bled. And alas, let's not speak about the past, and some things were better left forgotten. And during the second act, while Clive spoke with the artificial god Jean, my brother Shalom visited our balcony, and the couple that shared our balcony pretended not to notice his presence. And I hugged my brother and I kissed him on the cheek, and as usual, Shalom did not return my display of affection. And he whispered, and I whispered to my friend, "This is my baby Rose Shalom." The twins seemed much surprised at the difference between us. Remembering their manners, the twins said, "Nice to meet you." Shalom said with his telepathy, "A pleasure as always, dear sister, and nice to meet the rest of you as well." How's been life to you?" I inquired. Smiling, he said, "There's never a dull moment between grave robbing and theater management." "Have you heard from Father?" "Yes, and from Mother as well," he responded. "Do you speak with Warden as well?" "I spoke with Warden recently," I said sadly. "She's bossy there, my dude, isn't she?" commented Shalom. "She also gave you homework?" "Plenty," he said, sighing, and he added, "I suppose some things cannot be helped. She does have Father's eyes, after all." We finished our little pep talk. Time, bro?
10 minutes.
Shalom rose and left as silently as he arrived, and my companions could not make heads or tails of our conversation, mostly because we simply moved our mouths and did not emit sound. And attributing that to our telepathy, my companions went back to focusing on the plane, seeing as though they could not hear our private conversation. And the final play was the Ballad of a Saga, and indeed the tale drew the entire audience to tears. Young and old alike, everyone in the audience started reminiscing about their childhood pet. And never again would they look at the same way the pet of poor lonely children. And in that somber, depressed mood, a carriage drove us back to the inn, and by now it was 3 hours past midnight. And the last play had been purposely extended several times in order to cover for the grave robbers, and their looting had taken longer than usual due to Arasa's frequent appearances, and for all the effort the necromancer had a bad haul that night. With their heads down low, the circus returned to their camp at the edge of town, and with tired feet we walked up to our huge shared bedroom, and it took an hour to undress my motley crew. And once we changed into our pajamas, the twins drifted us to sleep inside the comfortable mahogany bed. And I took some of the decorative pillows, some cushions, and a fur sweater, and made a bed for my fairy friends. All my companions drifted us to sweet, blissful sleep, and some dreamt of the secret game, and others thought of a saga. And Kashmir dreamt he was a seer, and Armir dreamt she was Cassandra, and since the town was silent, Magus' presence lurked in every corner, and being content with his lot, the silence he emanated was peaceful silence as death. And everyone in town enjoyed the silence in their solemn hour of rest, and I too felt myself drifting into a peaceful slumber. And like a cold splash of water, I was awakened by a laughter in the dark, and I rose from my bed and I felt my way in the darkness, and the marble felt cold beneath my feet. And I slowly made my way towards the source of the laughter, and my courage started failing as I got closer to the source. A door at the end of the hallway was slightly open ajar, and my hand trembled as I pushed the door open. From my lips escaped a weak moan. "Daddy?" A cold hand struck my cheek, and when I opened my eyes, I saw my trembling face reflected in Vico's deep black eyes. And giving a sigh of relief, I held Vico's head against my chest, and it had been a nightmare and nothing more. And Vico still returned my affectionate hug and drew closer to my face, and his calm eyes reminded me of the fact that my kind does not get nightmares. Mother's sleep research had practically abolished nightmare, and I said to Vico in a low voice, "Just whose nightmare was that?" She didn't have a nightmare, she had someone else's nightmare, because of the telepathy. Vico shrugged his shoulders in response, and like two frightened children, we fell asleep in each other's arms, and this time my wires did not get crossed. And when I awoke, I was alone in my room, and it had been quite some time since I last fell asleep, since I have truly slept. And I lazily rose from my bed and opened the curtains of my room, and I saw that it was just around noon, and I wrapped myself around my cloak and headed downstairs. And Cersei Blue was waiting for me downstairs with Vicos, and I ate some sweet pastry for breakfast while Cersei Blue devoured a grape. As for Vicos, he licked his lower lips, and he usually did this after he had eaten a big meal, and I vaguely wondered who had been his latest victim. And after I finished my meal, the innkeeper handed me a note. Apparently the twins and the other fairies had gone to buy a carriage and supplies. And a wry smile painted itself on my lips, and 2 hours past noon, a carriage drawn by 4 horses arrived. And the horses were a crossbreed of Fresnia and Cladrumber horses, and this made them ideal for long travel, as well as being cute to look at. Time, bro?
6 minutes.
The back and the roof of the carriage were full of supplies, and a stable boy was driving the carriage, and Kashmir, wearing human traveling clothes, got out of the carriage and paid the boy for his service, and the boy quickly departed. I heard Casimir say while leaving the carriage, "Do any of you know how to drive a carriage?" Vico shrugged his shoulders in response, and Cersei Blue simply frowned. Narrowing my eyes, I said, "I always have to do everything. They brought a carriage, but none of them know how to drive a carriage, horses." But God, I don't think this is a good idea. Harry said, looking at the elves twins. Lazy elves. Crimson Rose added, "This would only attract robbers, you know, and who knows what else." Coolly, I said, I know, but what can we do? Well, what can they do? They shouldn't want a carriage, so they'll get the stupid carriage. Volga responded, "Still, it will help us reach our destination much faster." About the supplies, I started saying when Haley interrupted me. In a cheerful voice, she said, "Don't worry. Crimson Rose used to travel a lot with humans, and she helped us buy everything we needed for the journey." "I see," I said, rubbing my chin. In a nonchalant fashion, we prepared ourselves for our journey. and the lazy twins rode inside the carriage with Bug and Bug-Eye, and Vicos and I took the reins, and something about his presence helped keep the horses calm. And in less than an hour, we rode outside the city, and while driving the horses, I debated much with the fairies on what to call the horses. Eventually, I settled on calling the first two Pepoli and Favori, and the last two I called them Barzoi and Rudolfo. I chose those names because they were the names of famous black horses, and being used to the carrying passengers, the horses responded to whatever name we told them in a meek fashion. Time, bro?
4 minutes.
Once outside, it did not take long for us to run into problems, and I began to feel around us or along the road bandits stalking us, and based on my readings, they planned to attack at night, and I stopped the horses close to us, and Armir peered out outside and asked, "What's the problem?" I said to him, "Nothing, Vicos is simply going to ride with you guys." Recognizing my plan, Vicos went inside the carriage, and I asked the horses to continue the march, and once inside, Vicos lowered the blinds, and much to the twins' chagrin, he said nothing to their questions, and the twins decided not to press the issue, and with the blinds lowered, the bandits would not notice Vicos' metamorphosis, and from within the carriage, Vicos became the silence. And he blended to the surroundings, causing everything to be still, and the twins and the fairies were caught in the reverie of the silence, and by nightfall the silence was growing around us. And I stopped the horses near the river, and I released their restraints and told them to drink water and eat grass. And I could feel the robbers gathering around us, and one of them felt a bit distraught when he noticed that I was watching in their direction. And he figured that it was impossible for me to see him in that darkness. And what most concerned the other bandits was the fact that I had yet to light a campfire, and it almost felt to them that I was daring them to attack. And the current of the river became still, and the horses stopped making sound. Time, bro?
3 minutes.
The silence was broken when Pepoli neighed with anticipation, and his system warned of the presence of danger, and the only other sound was made by the quiet rustling of leaves as padded boots made their way around the carriage. And a voice deep inside me said, "It's starting." And I felt as my inner self being drawn within, and it was as if the ground had become water, and I sank deeper and deeper into the darkness, and my entire soul departed that silent river, and I could see my body around me as I sank deeper, and my gaze became focused on the one person in front of me, and Nalini was standing before the mirror, and she was wearing ornamental white robes with flowers, and she had grown much since I had last seen her, and in the reflection of the mirror, I was able to see Armir entering the room, and when he took her by the hand, he was able to feel my presence within that Nalini. And frowning, he said, Are we never going to be rid of you?" I know I responded, Hey, chump, I don't like this any more than you do. If you must know, Nalini was the one who summoned me here. Armir bit his lower lip, and he said, "Pity." He led me across the hallway, and the palace seemed brighter than usual, and when we entered the audience hall, I saw all of the idols assembled, and they had candles in their hands, and they were lined up in rows, and Armir led Nalini across the path created by the elves. And I took some time to peruse Nalini's memories, and it seemed that she was nervous about the second birth ritual. And since she had a few of my memory fragments, she knew of Vicos, and she worried that he would attack her the second she obtained a second flame. And truth be told, she was right, and I could feel Vicos' presence stuck in the corners of the darkness, and his anger was growing with each passing second. Time, bro?
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Suddenly, his presence completely left the audience house. Apparently, he had found a new prey, and while I would walk with Armir, I had an ugly feeling about the fate of my body. And sure, I could activate the self-defense protocols, but I fear that it would overreact to a simple bandit attack, and it was a dangerous game to inhabit two bodies, and I simply had to have faith that my friend would be able to handle 30 or 50 armed bandits. Now let us return to the second birth ritual or whatever, and I knelt down before Armir, and the priest brought a golden plate filled with burning oil, and the flame emanated from the plate lamps in a most dazzling fashion. Yeah, I think the timer?
Less than a minute.
Alright, well, bye-bye.